The distress call came through at 0400 hours, piercing the quiet of the research station like a blade. Dr. Alara Wynne jolted awake, her heart hammering as the emergency klaxon wailed through her quarters. She was already pulling on her boots when the comm crackled to life. "Dr. Wynne, you need to come to the nursery. Now." The voice belonged to Cattell, one of the Vorathi attendants, and it carried an edge of genuine panic that made Alara's blood run cold. She sprinted through the corridor, her breath fogging in the recycled air. The Zenith station orbited Vorath Prime, a world of crystalline forests and silver skies, home to the magnificent Vorathi, a species of bipedal, feline-like beings whose civilization had reached the stars millennia before humanity learned to forge bronze. Alara had been stationed here for 8 months as part of the interspecies cultural exchange program, studying their young and their remarkably complex social structures. But nothing in her training had prepared her for what awaited in the nursery. The moment the doors slid open, a cacophony of high-pitched wails assaulted her ears. 4 Vorathi cubs, each no larger than a human toddler, covered in downy silver fur with enormous violet eyes, huddled together in the center of the room. They were screaming, their tiny bodies trembling, claws extended in distress. Around them stood a dozen adult Vorathi, including the imposing figure of Rakor, the alpha of this particular clan. Rakor stood nearly 8 feet tall, his midnight black, fur marked with ceremonial scars that denoted his rank and battles won. His amber eyes, usually sharp and calculating, held something Alara had never seen in them before: confusion, bordering on helplessness. "What happened?" Alara demanded, pushing through the crowd. "We don't know," Cattell said, his tail lashing in agitation. "They woke like this 30 minutes ago. Nothing calms them. Not food, not their mothers, not even the Alpha's presence." He gestured helplessly at the cubs. They keep calling for you." Alara froze. "For me?" Rakor's rumbling voice cut through the chaos. "Impossible. Cubs respond to pack hierarchy. I am Alpha. They should seek comfort from me." His tone carried not arrogance but genuine bewilderment. "Yet they bare teeth when I approach. They reject their mothers. They cry one word over and over." His eyes fixed on Alara. Alara. Her name. They were crying her name. Without thinking, Alara dropped to her knees and opened her arms. "Hey, little ones, I'm here." The effect was instantaneous. 4 small bodies launched themselves at her, tangling in her lap, burying their faces against her chest and shoulders. Their cries dissolved into hiccuping sobs, then to soft mewls, and finally to the purring rumble that indicated contentment in Vorathi young. Within moments, all 4 were breathing deeply, their tiny chests rising and falling in the rhythm of sleep. The nursery fell silent except for that gentle purring. Alara looked up to find every adult Vorathi staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to something that might have been fear. Rakor's tail had gone absolutely still. In Vorathi body language, a sign of profound disturbance. "This shouldn't be possible," he said quietly, moving closer but keeping his distance. "Cubs imprint on pack, on blood, on hierarchy." His voice dropped even lower. "Never on an alien." "Maybe," Alara said softly, careful not to wake the sleeping cubs. "They don't see me as alien. You have no fur, no claws. Your eyes are wrong. Your scent is wrong." Rakor's tail flicked once, twice. "Everything about you proclaims outsider. Yet they." He gestured at the scene, seemingly at a loss for words. Over the following hours, as the cubs slept peacefully in Alara's arms, other Vorathi came and went observing this impossible thing. Scientists took readings. Behaviorists murmured theories. The cubs' mothers watched with mixed expressions of gratitude and wounded pride. It was old Tessara, the clan's eldest historian, who finally offered an explanation. "Perhaps," she said, her weathered voice carrying the weight of centuries, "it is not despite your differences that they seek you, but because of them." She settled near Alara, her ancient eyes knowing. "We Vorathi pride ourselves on strength, on hierarchy, on the natural order, but humans, Humans invented something we never conceived. What's that? Alara asked, though one of the cubs, the smallest, whom she'd named Pip, stirred at her voice and she quickly resumed her gentle rocking. Gentleness without weakness, Tessara replied. We comfort our young as duty demands. You comfort them because your heart demands it. They feel that difference, I think. In your touch, in your scent, in the beating of that strange, soft human heart. Rakor, who had been listening from the shadows, stepped forward. For a long moment, the mighty Alpha studied the human cradling his clan's most vulnerable members. Then, slowly, he lowered himself to one knee. A gesture of respect, Alara had learned, reserved only for equals or superiors. I do not understand this bond, he said, his voice rough with emotion. But I see its strength. These cubs rejected their alpha, rejected instinct itself, because they needed something we could not provide. He met Alara's eyes. Will you stay with them? Until they are ready to return to us? Alara looked down at the four peaceful faces, at the trust they'd placed in her, a stranger from across the stars. Her back ached, her arms were numb, and she needed to use the bathroom desperately. But as Pip's tiny hand curled around her finger, she felt something shift in her chest. I'll stay, she promised, as long as they need me. Rakor nodded slowly, then did something Alara would remember for the rest of her life. He reached out one massive clawed hand and gently, carefully placed it over hers and Pip's clasped fingers. Then you are Pack, he said simply. And I begin to understand why the galaxy should fear your kind. Fear us? Alara asked, surprised. The Alpha's smile showed all his teeth, but his eyes were warm. Any species that can make the young of another reject their own alpha, simply through the power of compassion? Yes, Doctor. Wynn, you are terrifying indeed. Outside the station, Vorath Prime's twin suns began to rise, painting the crystalline forests in shades of gold and amber. Inside, a human scientist held 4 alien cubs and taught an entire civilization a truth they'd never considered. That sometimes the strongest bond isn't forged through hierarchy or instinct, but through the simple, revolutionary act of caring. The cubs slept on, secure in arms that should have been foreign, comforted by a heartbeat that sang a different rhythm, but loved them all the same.